Okay, I think we'll make a start, everyone. Hello and welcome to the session today. My name's Jen Griffith, and on behalf of my colleagues here at Livestock and the BPC, thank you so much for joining us on this session today. Before we kick off, I have a few housekeeping items for you. So cameras and mics are turned off for all of our delegates today, but if you want to ask any questions throughout the presentation, we would love to hear from you. We'll be answering these towards the end of the session. So please use the Q&A button at the top of your navigation bar. If you're on a mobile phone, there are 3 dots which will allow you to navigate to the Q&A section, and if all else fails, drop your question in the chat and the team behind the scenes will pick those up and we'll get to them at the end. This session is also being recorded, so a copy will be made available to you afterwards. And at the end of the presentation, we've included a QR code on a final slide. So if you're interested in speaking to the Livestock team around biosecurity or contingency planning, and indeed the Livestock Protect platform itself, please scan the code and book a call with the team. We'll also include some information around how to contact the BPC to talk to them about membership potential. Okay, without further ado then, I'll hand you over to Richard Griffiths, the CEO of the BPC, to get us started. Over to you, Richard.
Thank you, Jen, and welcome everyone to this webinar for introducing digital biosecurity management with Livestock Protect. British Poultry Council is delighted to be working with LiveTech, and this is a step in our long-term relationship that we've had since the 2000s and all the work we've done on AI. But we're here to talk today to talk about something that's increasingly central to the future of our sector, the value of data, and also the practical application of it. The BPC represents over 70% of the poultry meat industry, and our job is to support members in managing risks to food security and business continuity, whether that's avian influenza, welfare, sustainability, or other challenges that have real business critical impacts. Having accurate and real-time data is key to the success of poultry meat businesses. It means producers can act more efficiently, make informed decisions, and it helps build confidence across the supply chain. We see it as our role not only to support our members in working through day-to-day challenges, but also in helping them anticipate what's coming and planning ahead wherever possible. That is how we build resilience for industry and ensure a secure food system for everyone. And this is where our work with LiveTech comes in. We share a vision of moving the sector from a firefighting mindset to one of foresight. Tools like Livestock Protect are designed to be accessible, transparent, and practical, aligning industry needs with the right solutions to help businesses grow. And everybody who's watching this webinar today or listening to it in the future, look at this technology and you can imagine the applications are limitless in the future. But today is about giving the audience a chance to see how tools like this can add real value to your operations. So I'm delighted to introduce today's speakers. Neil Samet is Director and General Manager at LiveTech. Neil joined LiveTech in 2016 and is committed to advancing disease control through innovation. Jack Hughes is LiveTech's biosecurity advisor. Jack provides guidance on biosecurity measures and helps implement best practices. Dean Button, product owner. Dean bridges the gap between the business team and the development team, ensuring both technical requirements and customer needs are met. So you've got a real expert lineup. Please listen carefully and please do ask questions. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Neil.
Thank you, Richard, and welcome everyone to our webinar. As Richard mentioned, the data and understanding are so important as we progress through our industry. And I wanted to give you really a brief overview of where the platforms came from and the reasons behind it. So we, as LiveTech, have been in business for 15 years, 8 of which has been the BPC's emergency resilience partner, dealing with both emergency and welfare-related depopulations. And without the support of the BPC membership, quite frankly, we would be in a very different position. You know, the government doesn't pay us any retained fee to offer such a service. So over the years and through more than 300 depopulations, we've seen firsthand the disruption that disease can cause. And we've become skilled at bridging the gap between government and industry, making processes faster and more effective, and helping industry get back up and running quickly. This has led really to ask ourselves, how can we give more back to not only the BPC membership, but also the wider industry? So aside to operations, and for many years, we have run an on-the-ground contingency planning service, which we provided practical advice and continuously improving biosecurity by working directly with farms and farmers. This has helped reduce risk and raised awareness and protected their business. It's proved hugely popular and valuable, especially during the last 4 years of major avian influenza outbreaks. And farmers saw it as a type of insurance, a fresh pair of eyes and a supportive partner rather than just an audit. So through both these services, we've collected really a wealth of data, and we've been determined to use it to help industry and reduce risk and predict disease and eventually put a measurable value on what good biosecurity means for flock health. So we began this digital journey in the summer of 2023 after a large avian influenza outbreak, one of the largest in the UK. We wanted to make our operations team more effective, and we recognised how much time was being lost with simply just filling out paperwork during these operations, spending hours in forms that were often, not stored in the right place. It took a while to get a signature. So we decided to go paperless, completely paperless, and convert all of these operations documents into a bespoke application. This saved us on average 2-3 hours on site and really related to a huge positive impact on farms and livelihoods, enabling faster turnarounds and more effective disease control, but also things like increased compensation and support for the farmer. So at that point, we knew we had something, and by combining those services, contingency planning operations, and the data and insights we'd gathered from years of frontline experience, we really started to think, how can this digital technology advance? How can we think more digitally? So first, and as many of you know, we developed a free application that allows anyone in the industry to register their premises, and that will notify them automatically when they're in and out disease control zones. Then we looked at the web-based platform, and it was born and designed initially for the BPC club members. We wanted complete control and the ability to make bespoke, really bespoke to the membership. So we built our own actual in-house digital team. So alongside offering that fast and effective and scalable emergency resource service as a team, which remains at the core of what we do, we wanted to offer this digital service to the membership for effectively free, shifting our support from purely firefighting to foresight, as Richard mentioned, and building stronger ties. It's now grown, and we offer this Protect platform beyond the membership, with several large trials taking place within the egg industry across the country, and we're actively looking at now moving this forward. We've been working with all the users over the last year and a half of development, and really taking their feedback and guided direct feedback and putting it into the platform. And of course, we still face challenges, in particular when dealing with external data sources and things that we can't fully control. But as a group and as a membership, we're pushing to get to the source of them and bringing it all together. We are making real progress, and we believe the platform is hugely important to the future, helping predict and reduce disease and making biosecurity easy to manage and ensuring everyone is prepared. The platform brings everything together: operations, call-off, disease mapping, that contingency planning, all in one place. And we feel it has been recognised. In 2025, we won the Digital Innovation Award at the National Egg and Poultry. So as a group, we are stronger, and us, and as Richard mentioned, working with the BPC, and I do urge everyone, it is an incredible organisation. If you get the opportunity to bring this together, I hope this helps formalise that stronger, and we demonstrate that by being part of this membership, we can really drive things forward. So I'm really excited to now hand over to Jack and Dean, who will talk you through the key features of the platform. So without further ado, Jack, please.
Hi, hello everybody, and thank you for joining today. Is that screen sharing? Yep. So my name's Jack Hughes, a biosecurity advisor here at Livestock, and what I'm about to demonstrate is our Livestock Protect dashboard. Now, what I'm showing for the purpose of today is our main dashboard, which you get as an enterprise level, so people within the BPC and people who have signed up to the enterprise level agreement. What we do have, as Neil mentioned, is the app version, which is a free version for all users, and I encourage everybody to go and download that and make the most use of it as possible. So to get us started, what we have here on the left-hand side is a list of modules which we've created in-house alongside feedback from the industry and using our in-house digital team to scale these as fast as possible. And we'll get back to them in a little moment. But what we have here is a map of the UK, and for the purpose of today's call, we've planted some mock farms as such onto the dashboard, and we can see these positioned around the UK. What we can also see here is the current avian influenza zones, and as Neil mentioned, we're drawing that and sourcing that data through external sources, through DEFRA. And there is challenges with that, but we are making that a smoother process and speeding that up with feedback and integration with the BPC and with DEFRA in themselves. But what we have here is the ability to have a legend, so we can switch on protection zones, surveillance zones, captive monitoring zones, and as we all know, the avian influenza prevention zone, which has been in place for the past year. And what this allows you to do is to be notified when there's a single farmer you may well be in a zone, or as an enterprise level, how many farms you have within that zone, and ultimately when that zone comes out of place. So you're able to make decisions and be ready to get licensing in place if need be. If I switch over to the right-hand side here, we have the ability to switch zones on and off so we can see more clearly. But we also draw on data from historical outbreaks, so we can look all the way back to over the past 3 years. But if we was to go back into December and February of 2023, we're able to look at the hotspots throughout the UK and where most of these outbreaks have been happening. And as we all know, it mainly happening over in Norfolk and around that eastern part of the country. But it's very sporadic. They are happening around the UK as such. And this is something we believe in time we're going to be able to start to look and predict and help you as an industry understand where these are happening year after year and how we can manage that, how we can be prepared to see these foresights coming. So if I bring that back up to the current day, what we're also doing is we're bringing into play the wild bird data. So we're bringing that data in again from DEFRA, and that was we're at the mercy of DEFRA for that. That's only what's registered on a weekly basis, but I believe that's now being sped up and reported back to the industry more easily. But to go and find that data is quite a deep dive into DEFRA's website and to try and find that information. So what we're doing is making that easier and bringing that information into here also. And what we're doing is giving the ability to switch these on and see what kind of birds are being found in that area. We know the herring gulls are the main issue around the UK at the moment. So we're highlighting that to you as a user. And as we can see, this is very close to the zones which are currently in place. And to me, when we're seeing one, again, we're at the mercy of what's being handed in or reported to DEFRA. And I see that as a problem, as in when we say we see one rat, we've got a problem. Well, if we see one wild bird, there's probably numerous amounts in that area also. And we can see them spread out around the UK in various different positions. So we can see that it's not just isolated to one area, it's actually isolated, it's all around the UK. And also with the current outbreaks, we all believe, there's a season for avian influenza and it starts in October. But what we've seen this year is actually we've not had 1 month without an outbreak. So it's here and it's here to stay, but it's when does that pressure start to come in and start to show the most? And what we're doing now is we're starting to bring that information in from Europe, so from mainland Europe, and looking at what kind of wild birds are being found over there to try and plan and predict when they are coming in. And with future enhancements and changes and modules what we're bringing to the system, we are now starting to look at the migratory bird data and plotting that over into the UK. And it's quite phenomenal what you can see there, because we are seeing the birds coming over from the Netherlands and over into that Norfolk area, and there's a trend. So what we're trying to do is provide you with a tool here to use at your own discretion, but for us to also feed back as advisors to try and plan and predict and prevent measures on into the UK industry. And we'll touch a little bit more on that later. But if I switch over to a new module which we've inserted, and this is Paula, and this is an AI assistant, which we've fed with data and responsible data. So we're drawing from the likes of DEFRA, and we're drawing from our own SOPs and contingency planning for you as an industry. And this is a free tool within the free app as well, for you to come in and ask a question which you might want to know, and you might be looking around the internet and trying to dive into DEFRA's backlog to find that information. So we fed this with a lot of data, but it's only as good as the data that we're feeding in and the questions that are being asked. And this is a beta testing version. So what we're trying to do here is encourage people to ask questions and feed us data to be able to help the industry as a wide. As I say, this is drawing from reputable industry partners. So we're not going out into the breadths as like ChatGPT would and drawing all information from the breadths of the internet. We're actually going straight to the source to feed you the correct information. So please, I encourage as many people as possible to jump in and use this free tool. Coming back over onto the left-hand side in the tabs I spoke about earlier, we have a properties tab. Now, within this properties tab is listed each individual property that has been uploaded into this system. And if you're an enterprise level and we're bulk uploading 200 or 100 farms into the system for you, these will be all listed in order. If you're a single farmer, you'll have one farm sat there. But what this does is it provides a list and highlights at the very top which farms are landing in protection zones or surveillance zones, to give you the ability to have that information at the touch of a button. So you can come into the system, you can see automatically these farms are in a protection zones. What measures do I need to put in place? What licensing do we need to move forward with? And as Neil and Richard spoke about earlier, data is powerful, and people are a little bit scared of data and how that data is dispersed across industries or between different partners. What we're trying to emphasize is that data through this system is relevant to each individual farm or each individual enterprise, and that is not shared between anybody apart from people who at your discretion you would allow us to share that data with, and that can be your own industry partners or your farming partners. But what we have here in these data buckets, as we would call them, is the ability to jump in and switch off whether that farm's actually in production or it's out of production. But we can also dive deeper into here to find the information using what three words, exactly where it's located, the CPH numbers, and obviously the location of each individual shed. And what we've also added into here now is a documentation storage area, so we can pile documents in and use this as an audit area, so we can store relevant documentation at your own discretion of what you would like to store against that property. So for the purpose of today, I'm going to jump past operations. Neil spoke a bit about that earlier, where we can call off if we've got an issue or we believe we may have a salmonella issue, and you can call us in. But for the purpose of today, I'm going to jump straight into the EBAS. And EBAS is the fundamental foundation of what we're trying to build here at LiveTech and through Livestock Protect, alongside feedback from the BPC and beta members that have been using the system. And this is a very powerful tool. It draws on all of the knowledge from ourselves and industry knowledge which has been fed to us. But to just give a bit of insight through our own internal team, we've got people from welfare to assurance compliance to farming to agricultural engineering, and obviously through our operations and the 300 or so outbreaks that we've had. We've drawn on all of that knowledge and information about what is good practice and what we see as being able to bring a challenge into farm. And we've made an assessment. Some people might say, well, it's just another audit. This is not another audit. This is an assessment and a survey for users to use to assess their own level of biosecurity. We all have a checklist through an assurance scheme, but what we want to step away from is, why are we doing it to just comply with assurance schemes, or are we actually doing this to stop challenges coming into farm? And how we've done that is we've made an assessment of a 75 questions, which is variable across, depending whether you're a broiler supplier or an egg supplier or a turkey, or whether you're even free range. And we dynamically change the question set to depending on what level of production you're at. But what we're doing here is for the essence of today, we're bringing in free mock assessments, and we're giving an overall assessment and an average score over a multiple farms if you was an enterprise level, and we'll drop down into singular level in a moment. But what we see here is we're giving you a biosecure score. We're saying you're 58% biosecure across your supply chain. But we don't look at that as in 58% biosecure. We look at that as in 42% vulnerable. And if we're 42% vulnerable over a numerous amounts of farms, that's quite detrimental, and it looks quite hard for problems across them sites. And 42% is quite a high risk across multiple farms. And what we're doing is we're breaking the assessment down into individual areas. So we look at it across 5 areas when we come out to farm, from the rest of farm area to the perimeter control point, the general biosecure area, the intermediate area, and the live bird area. And as I said, when we built this system, we built it off the back of what we do walking into a farm in person. It's clear, working with the BPC and the wider poultry industry, that we cannot get out to each farm every single day unless we have 365 advisors. We are a biosecure company. We can't be going on to farms every day. So what we've done is we've provided a tool in a digital format what can take you through as we would if we was visiting farm and walking through. And it allows you to take these questions at your own self-pace. So you can walk through the farm, you can answer these questions. And it's not just about the infrastructure in place, it's about how protocols are in place and how methodology is used on farm. How do we carry out muck transferring or bedding up in the sheds? So we're looking at all them intrinsic links of how diseases or challenges can get into farm. And ultimately, when we go back to the areas that we're scoring, we fully well know the rest of farm area or the area outside of the farm. It's not in your control. If you've got rivers or wetlands or wild birds around, that's not within your control, but that is a risk factor to your farm, and we've got to highlight that. But what we do have under our control is everything from that gate at the perimeter control point, what's happening in the general area. How do we get into the intermediate area, which in the egg sector would be the egg room, or within the broiler sector would be your service areas and your control room? And then how do we get into that live bird area? And ultimately what we want to see is that percentage going all the way up and climbing as we get towards that live bird area. We don't expect every farm's going to be 100%. Nobody's going to be 100%. But if we can be 100%, 99% of the time, we can achieve and we can stop and help and try and mitigate issues getting into that shed. So coming down to a shed level, what we've done here is we've provided a dashboard, and this dashboard is growing and being more relevant with the feedback that we're getting from the industry and our partners to make it more relevant to what you're wanting to see. And what we can see here is a historical scores, so we can see when you've done your initial by EBAS to where you are now. So when we've made improvements, how are we seeing that gradually build over time? And then we're giving you a risk and suggestions. So with every single question and every answer, there is a suggestion, whether that's a good aspect what you're putting in place, or whether we can make improvements. As I say, this is built off what we will be doing in person. So when we come to farm and we have a group discussion, why does this work? What's working for you? How are staff managing that? We can't technically do that through a desktop, but what we are able to do is give you suggestions. We see these suggestions also as advisors, and then we can start to feed them back. But what we've also done is put risk levels in there. So where are we highlighting which is a real risk to that farm, and bringing that to the forefront of everybody's minds. So what we have here, so what, for instance, a question, what barriers are in place to restrict pedestrians and vehicle access to the poultry unit for the rest of the farm? What we can see here is that the user has added that there are no barriers or gates to the entrance to the poultry unit. That is very detrimental to biosecurity. We're not stopping people at that farm gate and we're just allowing people to drive freely into that shed. We have missed one step to stopping any challenge getting into that farm. So what we do there is we make a suggestion, and we can see the suggestion at the bottom: in securing the poultry unit limits the access and reduces the risk of disease spread from people and vehicles. Fewer movements means a lower risk of disease and incursion spread. And what we're doing as advisors is we're seeing that across multiple aspects of the supply chain, or as single farmers, we would be getting on the phone and saying, how can we help there? What's stopping you from putting a gate? What's stopping you from closing it? And ultimately what we're trying to do is change mindset. To me, biosecurity in today's modern world is about mindset change. We all have infrastructure, and infrastructure doesn't have to be expensive, but it has to be relevant and it has to work. But we also have to change our mindset into what biosecurity actually is on poultry farms. So in its essence, that's what EBAS is. It's taking our knowledge and bringing that to yourselves in a powerful tool in your hands to give you feedback and reassurance in what you are doing on your sites. So stepping away from the EBAS, we're just going to jump into Access Protect. Now, Access Protect is another powerful tool we've designed, and we've seen a gap in the industry to cover. And this is a QR code visitors signing in system. We know everybody in the industry has to have a visitor's book, and we have a visitor's book, and it might be sat in a shed or sat in the egg room. Well, sometimes that just gets bypassed. People are not signing in. Most of the time people are signing in. 50% of the time people are not even signing back out. So we don't know where people have come from, where they have been. So what we've done is we've taken that feedback, and we're now providing a tool which allows for users and enterprises to see movement around their supply chain, but also movement in between farms. Be that staff as a single farmer. Have we got staff moving around from one farm to another farm? Have we got wagons moving around from farm to farm? And ultimately, this helps in the epidemiology report. You know, if a site was to become an infected premises, and APHA come onto site and say who's been on this site, you need to be able to show that as clear as possible to the government, and then they can carry on with their investigation to ensure that no other site has been infected. And ultimately, for members of the BPC of large numbers, where have people been moving around your supply? Have people been moving from one farm to another farm? How do we know what challenges are moving around? And what we're able to do for the keen user is to be able to drill this down into specifically who's been on that farm. But we can also start to put QR codes on singular sheds. We can put QR codes on feed bins. There's unlimited usage of what this system can be used for, and that's at the discretion of the user of how many QR codes they wish to have. But what we can see here and demonstrate to government or to our stakeholders is who's been moving around and where have they been moving around sheds. And ultimately what we want to do there is to be able to show that people have not been in a shed what may well be infected and then gone to another shed. This is how do we emphasize what biosecurity is and highlight challenges. So not just avian influenza, but have we seen a salmonella move from one shed to another shed, or from that shed to another farm? So ultimately, this is a tool and a powerful tool for users to use, so we can see that clear movement around the country. And I do see other aspects of this to be used for bird movement and feed movement, and to really bring this to the forefront of people's minds to understand how much movement around the country there actually is. So just stepping away from there now, coming into the emergency response plans. And now this is where Neil spoke about earlier, and where we really started in the industry alongside our operations team and our stepping into contingency planning, is our emergency response plans. Now, this is proved time over time with our customers, and some customers who unfortunately have had to use it, that this is a document which actually saves time, it saves money, and it saves a lot of stress. Because ultimately, if a site was to become an infected premises, the APHA are going to come in and they're going to ask for multiple sources of information. And now we know most people have this information, but one piece of it might be in one shed or up in the office on the wall. And this can take time. It can take a lot of time to go and find this information. And every minute that's taking that little bit longer, unfortunately, there's birds dying, there's welfare issues occurring. And the longer that takes, we are actually feeding these birds when we should be on with the operation and clearing this farm as quick as possible, because ultimately there's money being spent, and then there's less money coming back in. And so what we've done is we've taken all of that, what we do for our clients, and we've brought that into a digital format. And this now allows users to bring all of that information into one place and to be able to manage that across multiple farms, but also for the single farmer. They can come into here now and they can update these as and when they are needed to. So we're able to, if bird numbers have changed or we've put another shed up, how do we get into that information and change it as quickly as possible? We've done that now. We've brought that to the table for users to be able to do that, but also incorporated the fact that, I know as users and farmers, we love nothing more than being able to go and grab a file off the wall or out of the cupboard. So we've given the ability to download this as soon as you need it. So you can download it, you can print it, and all of them changes will have already been made. But what we've also done is brought in the ability to do the mapping. So we can map each individual farm, or we can map multiple farms to be able to start to highlight where our rest of farm area lies, a general biosecure area, where we're getting into sheds, live bird area and ranges. And now we're given the ability to add more pins into here. So where's our perimeter control point, where are our water storage tanks, feed bins, etc. And I see that having other purposes for the likes of IPPC to be able to demonstrate where everything is. But ultimately what we want to use this tool for is to advise and to help yourselves as users understand why boundaries mean so much. So sometimes we'll go to farms and the general biosecure area will be the size of three football pitches outside of the shed, and it incorporates small businesses or the agricultural business or even the house and the dwellings on the farm. If they are to land in that general area, and we've not made that as small as possible, and this was to become an infected premises, what we've actually done is brought them systems or them businesses and houses under the same boundary as the poultry unit, which means that business is no longer operating whilst under investigation or whilst under a depopulation. And also the house is under the same licensing and investigation. So maybe you have children going to school in the morning or coming home from school, or you've got elderly people on site who need help and people coming on to service them. This is a clear issue, and we've seen it time over time. And what we want to do is use this as a tool for yourselves to draw your own maps out, and for us to review and look and go, well, actually, why have we made it so big? Why are we coming in this way to the farm? How do we manage this a lot better? Specifically during, if you was an infected premises, how are you getting into this site without affecting other businesses? Where are we storing manure if we was to have infected manure? So ultimately, it's a powerful tool, but with the help of us in the background, it is going to help as well for us to advise. And what we're trying to do here is give you the power back in your hands without the need to just come back to us to change things. And again, speeding this process up, but also making sure that you're comfortable and the data is, you understand that it's all yours and that it's not being shared anywhere else. So ultimately, this tool in itself, the ERP, is a massive game changer for people. And I understand people have emergency response plans in place, and that might tell you what you're going to do in a fire or a flood, or like aircraft lands on your roof. But ultimately, that isn't going to stand up when APHA do come in and ask you for the whole documentation. And I guess for anybody on this call who's ever been through that will fully understand that is a clear issue. So in the purpose of today, what we are trying to achieve through this platform is to give the industry a tool to be able to mitigate and prevent and predict whether certain sites are more vulnerable, whether there's a chance of incursion, and how do we prevent that from being spread out and going to other farms. And ultimately, I think this all starts from day-to-day biosecurity. We all need to look at biosecurity as not a buzzword when avian influenza comes round, and from October we should be at heightened biosecurity. This is not the way forward. We all need to be at the forefront of it by using data to implement and to understand what measures are actually working, but to also incorporate other entities, like bringing medical books in and where's manure being spread, and all of these other relevant third-party data. And we are looking at incorporating that into the system to understand what daily challenges are occurring on farms. If we don't look at what's occurring every day, then we don't know what's going to happen when avian influenza comes. So from my side of things, I believe biosecurity starts every day. And when we start looking at singular challenges, from E. coli's moving around and bacteria's moving potentially from farm to farm through supply chains, we're actually getting on the forefront of biosecurity, and we can start to put a measurable cost on what biosecurity actually means by lowering mortality, improving production, and keeping the industry safe, and also strengthening our supply chain. So from myself, I hope that was informative, and I would like to pass back over to Jen for questions and answers.
Excellent. Thank you, Jack. Thank you so much for walking us through the platform. I do have a few questions for the panel to kind of go through, so should we get stuck in? The first one we have here is how could track and trace systems, a bit like the Access Protect one that we've walked through, improve overall livestock welfare and disease management? Richard, would you like to take that one for me?
Yeah, I'd take it from a sort of industry level. One of the biggest challenges that we have at industry level, and I think this will be recognised throughout the audience, is our relationship with our regulators and government, and particularly with something like avian influenza, but all sorts of other issues. How can we support government and regulators to do an efficient, quick, effective job, particularly in the face of urgent need? And I think the tracing is just one element where we can say to government, look, we as industry, we're on the front foot here. We want to work together in partnership with you. So this for me is what makes this so exciting, that we can bring all the stakeholders together. And that's the root of this the use of data. And for me, there are practical benefits that others can talk about. For me, at an industry level, that's the excitement in this. It's bringing all the stakeholders together.
Perfect. Thank you, Richard. So actually, maybe this one's for you, Neil. What role does data play then in preventing disease outbreaks and improving practices on farm? Would you like to tackle that one?
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Jen. Well, data really is a relatively new aspect when we're monitoring production in general right across the poultry industry. I think especially with the larger integrators, we're getting much better, more efficient at it, and it's becoming really at the forefront of everything we do, and we see it a lot in the shows we go to and the presentations. But as far as biosecurity is concerned, it's still seen very much as a physical aspect, and the data side is very much lacking. So we feel that using systems like we've presented today, we can up that influx of data in line with biosecurity, using the EBAS, looking at how we can change those mindsets and present the data in a really easy way that people can follow, and putting it all into one place, as we touched on. And it's also prediction and early warning is essential, I believe, I would say, for the outbreak side, just making it really simple and preventing the disease, even with it being able to switch down and lockdown farms really quickly. So just improving those practices in general, especially when you've got multiple sites or sheds split apart. And as Jack touched on the QR coded based system, just understanding that and presenting that, we say in a really easy way, as we feel is a great way of preventing and improving that practices in general.
Thank you, Neil. So actually thinking about improving practices on farm, Richard, do you think then that better data collection and analysis will also contribute to sustainable farming practices and help, producers reduce environmental impact?
Definitely. That's the short answer. We've all heard about the frictionless trade, but really we should be thinking about frictionless supply chains. Our supply chains work on just in time. They need to be efficient, they need to be consistent. And it's when things happen that disturbs that flow that the problems really kick in and those business impacts are felt. So yes, sustainability is part of our process. And particularly with avian influenza, we're at the moment we're stuck in a lessons learned cycle. We're always looking backwards. And where we are now, what we're talking about is looking ahead. So sustainability is in the efficiency, it's in the flow of production, it's in the helping people to do their jobs efficiently and productively. So yes, absolutely, this is at heart about a sustainable livestock industry.
Perfect. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Thank you, Richard. I've got a question here about sort of platform itself and sort of ease of use. So the question is, how long does it take to complete one of the EBAS assessments? Dean, do you want to start that? But I think maybe Jack, you may also want to jump in on this.
Sure. From a solely technical point of view, which is obviously what the digital side worries about, when we've been out on site, guys can sit and run through it. We're at an exam in about 2 hours. It's often what it does is people start sitting at a desk, they'll be filling it in, then often go back and realize they don't know what signs are sitting on their entrances, or finding, just those little questions that they've never really thought about. They know it, but they're not 100% sure. So we've averaged out about 2 hours. Jack's done a lot more on site with current farms, so he'd definitely give a more reasonable answer.
Thank you. Jack, would you like to add anything to that in terms of how does it compare perhaps to having someone on site with you to work through an EBAS, versus doing it yourself? How does that compare?
Yeah, I think, we all know nothing beats, unfortunately, having somebody there to talk to, and farmers do and producers do like to have somebody there to talk to. But to reach the masses, we've got to bring a tool together to allow users to use it themselves and then feed back on that information. So from myself, it would depend on how good they are in understanding what's actually on that farm and moving around that farm. But ultimately, I think what it does is it pauses, and what we've seen when we've been out on farm with it and users have been using it, it actually pauses a lot of questions and gets people to ask themselves, actually, how am I doing this? How is that happening? And then, we are all human, and, we'll all walk past a pile of washing at some point and just think we'll do it tomorrow. And that's no different in farming. A lot of people will walk around the farm and go, that's all right, we'll fix that gutter next week. And that one gutter not working correctly can actually facilitate a virus getting into that shed. So I think what it does is, it's not an audit. It provokes and helps and gets people to question their own protocols on farm. And as I've touched on, I think it can be used in multiple ways. I think as a user, not just as a farm manager doing it, we should all be doing it. We should have 3 or 4 people doing it on one single farm. And the more we get people doing that, the more we get to understand people's mindsets. As I spoke about earlier, biosecurity to me is a mindset change. It's why are we doing this and what is it going to achieve? We can't see it. We can't see what it's doing. So it's like, are we actually, we're spending £1 and we're getting something? We don't see that. So we need to look and see what everybody's mindset is and how people think. Richard might do one, Neil might do one, and you, Jen. We might all come out with a different score, but why? What are we perceiving? What's different? So from my side of things, I think it's got multiple uses, and it should be used as an induction for new staff to make sure they understand what's actually happening on that farm, and how they perceive that it works on that farm. So to me, it would depend on who's doing it time-wise. If it's a farm manager or somebody who's worked on that farm for 50 years, they'll probably fly through it because it is a straightforward way of going around it. And again, I will be using it across my whole supply chain through new staff members to actually get people to understand what it actually means to be biosecure.
Perfect. Thank you, Jack. Okay, next question. Let's say I'm a producer and I'm in a suspected disease outbreak. What can this platform offer me? What am I doing with this tool when I think I'm in trouble, I'm in a disease outbreak? What is this tool going to help me to do right here, right now? Neil, would you like to take that one, please?
Yes, of course. Yeah. We will for start, we'll notify you. So it's fully automated. As Jack talked about, we take that data. It comes into the platform direct from DEFRA's website. So they would have a notification that they were in and out of zone. Earlier on and in the future, we want to actually tell them that they may be at risk and try and predict that through those wild bird and EU tracings, as we talked about. Next step is looking at that emergency response plan, which is really critical, and it's contingency planning 101, as Jack touched on, and you having all of that data available. If you were to get any sort of investigation, you've got that there. Instead of 20 minutes, half an hour, we've got some real world exercise that we've seen compared to a day or two and getting it all together. So kind of those are key elements. There's also the reporting side, and we can report early. We can report through the platform direct to APHA, which can then come back to, which will then notify APHA, and they'll get in touch with you within a number of hours. So it makes it simple and bringing it all into one place, as we talked about. So really, having all that at your fingertips, along with a clear checklist of what's going to happen. And again, what I talked about at the start, 300 depopulations, all of the information. We've developed within the emergency response plan a checklist of literally down to close this gate, do this, open that, making it that simple for people. So it just takes all that stress away. And I would say that those are kind of the clear tools. I know Jack's probably got his hand up.
Yeah.
Biting it to touch on this a bit further, so I'll let Jack take that further.
Yeah, no, I'd just like to, we know when avian influenza and these zones are coming into place through our, our work with our customers, it's an anxious time. People are on the, am I doing enough? And it's always that feeling from producers is, have I done enough to prevent anything coming into my system? And ultimately, for people who unfortunately do get avian influenza, is them questioning themselves mentally, what have I done wrong? How has this got into this unit? And what we see from our customers is, if a zone comes into place, and one thing that we do offer to our users and enterprise level as well as singular farmers, if we know there's a possible potential positive coming in place in some of these areas, we will be on the phone to say it's around here now, there's a potential that this is occurring. What are you doing what you're saying you're doing? Are we just running into the sheds and just turning a switch off and not doing what we say we are by changing boots? So I think what this tool can also do is try and help with that anxiety level and try and reduce the stress because there's nothing worse than sitting there thinking, well, what have I done wrong? How has this got into this shed? And we all have our own ways of thinking this avian influenza gets into sheds, but ultimately, from our perspective, this is walked in or washed into units, and it's that's my view on it.
Yeah, thank you both for that answer. That's brilliant. That's the end of the questions that we have to go through. Just before we close the session, is there anything else that our panel would like to ask or offer up as a final comment?
Jen, if I could,
yeah.
I think this product, this discussion has come about by, in years past, saying, what's next? What's the future? What does the future look like? So I'm going to ask that question again, if I may. Sort of, what's next? What's the potential here? And what is LiveTech looking at for the next step or the next generation?
I wonder, perhaps Dean, have you got anything that you would like to share with the group around that in terms of product development?
I do. Let me share my screen.
Thank you.
So from a development perspective, we have a backlog. We have a really long backlog. Backlog is full of feedback, bugs, and new functionality that comes in. Somebody had a blue sky idea. And to Jack's point earlier on is, how do we look at the data that we currently have? So we obviously started out with outbreaks. This was the idea 3 years ago. And we start plotting the outbreaks. We alert you when you're in a zone, when you come out of a zone. Then following from that, we saw the pattern preceding most of the outbreaks. We find wild bird deaths nearby. And obviously preceding wild bird deaths, the birds actually fly there, right? And they almost always come from the continent itself. So we've been sourcing data and looking at wild bird migratory patterns. And if we start actually looking at these patterns, we start seeing where they mostly come from. And a really good or sad example, if you want to look at it that way, is where the birds actually are coming into these areas where there are current outbreaks. And what we look at doing with this is, as we see those those wild bird migration patterns increase, we want to be able to give users a heads up. Basically, what do you need to do? Do you need to batten down the hatches? The biosecurity advisors obviously know the next steps that you need to take to help you get ahead of this potential outbreak, especially seasonally depending. After this, it's been suggested, and we're also looking at weather patterns, because weather patterns obviously determine which way the birds fly. So this is the next big piece, and how do we use this data to start improving biosecurity on the farm? So that's our next one that you'll see sitting on the app.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that, Dean. I think that was a little bit of a sneaky preview of what's coming down the line. So thank you for putting that up. Okay, I think that's the end of our session. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We really appreciate your time. And thank you to our panel of speakers for sharing the platform and their thoughts on the poultry management in the UK at the moment. On the screen now, you can see the QR code that I mentioned at the top of the session. If you'd like to get in touch with the LiveTech team to talk about the platform or sort of indeed biosecurity management on farm, please scan the code and book yourself a call back. We've also included the link to the British Poultry Council website. We'd be welcome to go there and have a look at anything around the membership of that organisation, because it's really worth getting part of this conversation and becoming part of the development that's happening in this sector. And so that's it. Thank you once again, and we'll see you on the next one.